leg.
And we are live.
Great Break a leg, Doug.
Break a leg.
Right. Actually, breaking legs is an appropriate, exaltation for a show about professional wrestling, I think. So,
I think it is.
Let's break lots of legs. Two Bros Wrestling Show. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Back to Two Bros this week. Last week, if you didn't catch it, actually, we were on a special night on Tuesday. Doug, that was a lot of fun. We had our first guest ever on the show.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool. We were a few bros last week.
A few bros. I like that. That's a clever name for it. We gotta do that again someday.
I think we may have a third bro. Do you want to come over here?
Yeah, I think you have a third. What now?
I think we have a scene stealer coming in here.
Yep.
Hey.
So Kevin and I are going to talk about wrestling for the next hour. Are you cool with that? You ready to talk about wrestling?
Kenny Omega's the best wrestler in the world.
Yeah, he is. All right.
Well, we had our first guest on Tuesday night. Now we've had our second guest who just cut a promo. I think.
Kenny Omega, best, even though I have a CM Punk Best in the World shirt on. So.
But yeah, thanks, folks, for tuning in. David, thank you for joining us on Tuesday night.
We do. You weren't available tonight, David. So I had to call in the family reserves tonight, man.
Liam's always available. Actually, it's a good topic. It's a good night for his dad because tonight
the show's already gone off the rails. Go ahead and do the news. I'll be back. Okay.
Let's do that. There's your opening bell for tonight, folks. We're going to talk in a few minutes about AEW and, in recognition of their second anniversary. That is our main event topic. But let's start off with some news. The big story this week, if you haven't heard, is legit heat in a backstage confrontation between WWE superstar Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch following their tense belt exchange on Friday night. If you did see the belt exchange, it looked great on TV. It didn't exactly go as scripted, though, apparently, and the drama continued behind the scenes between the two ladies. If you noticed, if you go back and watch, at a certain point, Charlotte Flair drops the Raw Championship before handing it over to Becky Lynch. That was not in the script. What was supposed to happen, apparently, is that Becky was going to grab the second belt. They were going to play into the Becky two belts thing, and then Sonya Deville, who was moderating the whole thing, was going to make her give the appropriate title over to Charlotte. Apparently, Charlotte wasn't crazy about that idea backstage. So Becky claims that Charlotte was trying to show her up by dropping the title. Charlotte would claim, apparently, in the argument that it was a complete accident that she dropped the title. But because one belt is laying on the ground, that caused Becky two belts to take the other title and throw it at Charlotte on camera. Again, all of that looked like that was what was supposed to happen, but apparently it was not. The two women got into an altercation behind the scenes after that segment aired. And then Becky went out for a dark match, and Charlotte was supposedly encouraged to leave the building in order for the fact that folks were afraid that the confrontation would continue once Becky got back to the backstage area again. Doug, I know you're back here. If some stories are to be believed, Charlotte was actually escorted from the premises by security.
So this probably could be an entire show topic, but do you think Charlotte is I don't know, doing a lot of shoot work now to just go ahead and get that contract expedited to finish it off and get herself future endeavored at this point?
This isn't an isolated incident.
No, it's not. Yeah.
Apparently, there's legit heat between her and Bianca Belair as well. This past week on Raw, Charlotte was supposedly, if rumors are to be believed, not happy with the way that was all scripted and playing out. So I don't know if she's just if all of this is either true or there's another side of the story, or you could be right. She could just be trying to irritate to eventually join her husband in AEW, which is something apparently he's made pretty clear that he would love to see happen.
And let's not forget that train wreck of a match between her and Nia Jax from a few weeks ago. So
I mean, we know how good Charlotte is, how talented she is. Obviously, Things did not go well on Friday night, and apparently this isn't the first time that she and Becky have had words. Apparently they have history of heat between one another. So I guess for now it's probably good that they are going to be on separate brands, and we'll see if any more word of Flair backstage and any antics as far as that goes continues to come out. But that's something definitely to keep an eye on. Switching to Impact news, last night was their Bound for Glory pay-per-view. It was very successful, and in fact was a sold-out event for the resurgent promotion. The stack card featured several title changes. The Inspiration, who were most recently known as the Iconics in WWE, they captured the women's tag goal in their first match for the promotion. Mickie James, who was recently released by WWE not all that long ago, she is now your new women's champion. She beat Deonna Purrazzo, who has sort of held that women's division in a deathlock for a long time now. So in some ways that's surprising. And then perhaps the most surprising moment of all is that there is a new Impact World Heavyweight Champion, as Moose is your new world champion.
Moose, yes, I saw this.
Well, the surprising part is he was not part of the main event. I mean, the main event was Christian Cage defending that defending that Impact Championship against Josh Alexander. Alexander wins the championship, and Moose immediately cashes in his call your shot, which is basically their version of Money in the Bank. Called into his contract, his right to a title match, and then took the title there. All this could be a way, of course, of moving things past Christian Cage era, because the other thing, Doug, I'd point out about this show is that apparently the word is that this is last not mark the end, at least for now, of the working relationship between AEW and Impact. And of course, Christian Cage is an AEW talent who was the Impact World Champion, so they'd have to move that belt off of him. This, of course, does present, if this is the way it goes down, a bit of a dilemma for the Good Brothers, who have been a huge part of the last year of the Kenny's clique, behind the scenes and on screen over at AEW. But they are Impact signed talent, so if this is the end of that working relationship for now. If you've noticed that we've seen a whole lot less of them, so I imagine that there is some truth to all that.
Yeah, I guess it is time to cycle out the Good Brothers then, if at least for now, if the working relationship is ending. But it seems like there are a lot of doors that are open now where folks can travel freely across, wrestling borders as it is. So
I think it's interesting that so many outlets are reporting this, the formal end of the relationship, when you consider that both promotions right now are featuring folks that are from New Japan, NWA. And so the fact that they would formally end their working relationship, that's, I think, for the most part, benefited both promotions quite well. Kind of interesting. Speaking of New Japan, Doug, let's move to New Japan news, because we have a G1 winner. And as Wrestle Kingdom comes into shape, for those who are follow the New Japan product, it's probably going to be no surprise as to who the winner is. It's a familiar face on the world title scene, but Kazuchika Okada is your G1 champion. He won the tournament by defeating Kota Ibushi. And for those not familiar with the G1 tournament, it is a month-long series of events that culminates in the winner, who then has a championship match at Wrestle Kingdom, which is essentially their version of WrestleMania every year. The match did not go, though, Doug, exactly as planned. There was a legit injury during this finale. Kota Ibushi went for a Phoenix Splash. Kazuchika Okada apparently rolled out of the way. Ibushi kind of landed awkwardly on his left shoulder, obviously in pain. After checking on him, the referee called for the bell as well as called for the medics. So it may not be exactly the way that they wanted to go down, and who knows? Maybe they had Ibushi actually booked to win and couldn't because of the injury. So it'll be interesting to see how they move forward, if this was the actual planned ending for it or not. But as it stands right now, it's going to be Kazuchika Okada in that main event match for Wrestle Kingdom, which, Doug, if you haven't heard, this year is not 2 days, but 3 days.
What?
It's moving to 3 days of action. So let's hope that WrestleMania doesn't follow suit, because 2 days is plenty. Actually, 1 day would be perfect if you got the timing on that one right.
Oh, my goodness. Really? 3 days of wrestle? Oh, wow.
3 days.
He's stunned around.
Stunned. Speaking of WWEs and pay-per-views, we do have a WWE pay-per-view update. The December WWE pay-per-view has been shifted to New Year's Day, and we'll have the name Day One is what they're going to call the pay-per-view. There are two pay-per-views currently listed for January 2022. There's Day One on January 1st, and then we'll have Royal Rumble on the 29th of January. This change means there is no longer a major show listed for the final month of 2021 on the WWE calendar. So Survivor Series, which is coming up on November 21st, will now be the final pay-per-view of WWE's year. So that's a little bit surprising for a company that used to give you as many pay-per-views as you could possibly handle, is now going to show a little bit of restraint. It did the Crown Jewel event this past week, and then having Survivor Series, and then that's it until New Year's Day. So interesting. So moving on for some other programming notes, this not pay-per-view, but this is affecting TV. For anyone watching us out there on the West Coast, originally this was the week that Dynamite was reported to start going live and airing live for both the West Coast and the Mountain Time zones. Apparently, though, that's no longer the case. It now appears that AEW Dynamite will not be live for those in the Pacific or the Mountain Time zones. This is because of the NHL schedule and their block on TNT on Wednesdays. The changes are expected to affect Dynamite in the ratings because you no longer have that live viewership on the other two coasts that they were hoping to count on. No word, though, on how this is going to affect them moving forward once they move to TBS. Hopefully that will no longer be an issue, and those of you who watch on the West Coast will get the live airing of Dynamite as the rest of us do. And then finally, Doug, well, actually not finally, I got a couple more. Sasha Banks confirmed she's not going to be appearing on the third season of The Mandalorian. There's been some speculation because of her, the extent of her role in season 2, but she has confirmed that that is not going to be happening. Also, moving to the next news item, former AEW and Impact talent Kylie Ray has been back in the news again. She's been extremely forthcoming on a topic we've covered a lot on this show, and maybe not enough, and that is that of mental health in the world of professional wrestling. She's been very forthcoming about her mental struggles. In fact, those mental struggles are the reason that she is a former AEW and a former Impact talent, is that she quit both organizations to focus on her mental health. She'd recently, though, been doing a whole lot better and taking indie dates, and in fact was beginning to work with Billy Corgan in the NWA. And she took to social media to say that she was having to pull out those dates to once again concentrate on her mental health as she's been struggling. So definitely all the best to Kylie Ray, an incredible talent, but again, bringing up the important issue of mental health in the world of wrestling. And then I'll leave on two personnel notes. First is top MLW star Filthy Tom Lawler is leaving the company. He's been on contract for the last 2 years, finishing up. And he is also currently wrestling for New Japan. So he still may be involved in the world of professional wrestling. And there is no word, though, here on the state side of whether or not WWE or AEW would be interested in him. The leader of Team Filthy, though, has been a highlight of both MLW and New Japan since he debuted over there. But there is also word that the 38-year-old, make note of that, 38-year-old Lawler is expressing interest in returning to mixed martial arts. And he remains under contract right now to Pro Fighters League. He's a former UFC star, but he's under contract to Pro Fighters League. Actually had a match in June of this past year. So if you can do it, I guess you better do it now, because 38's getting a little long in the tooth to be going out there and legit getting hit in the head.
Man, 28's a bit long in the tooth to be doing that, but hey.
And then the other news that I'll end on, Doug, is that a former WWE champion is on his way to New Japan, and that is Buddy Matthews, as he's known now, formerly known as Buddy Murphy in WWE. Extremely talented. A bit surprised that he didn't land in an AEW or an Impact, but there's obviously a lot going on in New Japan right now, so maybe that is the best place to make a buzz for an American talent as talented as a Buddy Murphy, or as he's known now, Buddy Matthews. So best of luck to him, as he's going to be debuting November 13th in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So with that, Doug, we're ready to move to our main event. I know we said we're going to talk Crown Jewel, and we are going to do a bit of a Crown Jewel recap, but if you're fine with it, I'm going to save that for the big finish, because it ties into some of the items I want to talk about on there.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with not talking about Crown Jewel at all, but
we have to. But I know now we'll talk about something that that you probably want to talk about just a tad bit more, Doug, because I've heard that you are an AEW fan.
I could be called a mark for AEW. I would own that, as it is in my name. So,
hey, I own it too. Most of you watching probably own it as well. AEW is the shiny new toy that gives us what we want, critically, very acclaimed, ratings-wise, doing really well. Tonight, though, we're going to talk about a part of AEW that doesn't get talked about all that much, and that's the actual business side of things. AEW often gets, when talked about outside of wrestling circles, when people hear about AEW, it's often in the context of they're the first major competition for WWE in 20 whatever years it is now. And of course, that brings back the ghost of what that last competition was, and that's WCW. And it's important to remember that that was a organization that was for the longest time owned and operated by a billionaire, signing away lots of talent on big money contracts, and in fact did something that AEW still not done, and that's go head to head and for almost more than a year and a half actually was the number one wrestling company in the world. And despite all that, they didn't make it. Their financial, now you could obviously argue the creative, and it is a very good argument that there's a lot of differences in how that is being handled, but it is worth a jumping off point comparison wise to go, just because you're successful in ratings and just because the fans are loving what you're doing and just because you're an alternative doesn't necessarily mean that you're not the billionaire's plaything and that you're actually not financially viable. So, the issue that happened with WCW is that when the day came that Turner sold his interest to a larger conglomerate of business.
I'm sorry. I just saw this pop up. Yes, let's do that. Let's down tune and do that.
Now you just got him started. You're recording that at the end of all this.
I'm so working on that later tonight. Sorry.
No, that's all right. I'd like to hear that myself. I don't know if I'm going to sing that. But yeah, AEW is, we know a lot about AEW. We don't know a whole lot about AEW's business dealings because unlike WWE, which we know everything, we know every business segment they have, what the numbers were for each quarter because they're a public business that's traded. Investors have to report all this stuff. But Doug, we don't know a whole lot about AEW's business side other than what you can get bits and pieces from interviews.
Right. I mean, a lot of, in prepping for this, which I actually prepped for this one.
That'd be more shocking than the Judas cover.
Don't worry too much about it. I mean, my prepping was to Google is AEW profitable and make some notes from that. Actually, I didn't even make notes. I just kept the websites that I had decent answers with up on my laptop here. So.
All right, I got notes. Probably looked into a lot of the same things because I did the same. I did research too because you almost have to, when investigating are they profitable, you have to sort of listen to a lot of these interviews and these little nuggets are dropped where money's mentioned, but you don't get a full financial picture the way we do for WB.
And it's easy for anybody to say, I expect business X to be profitable by the end of this year due to this, this, and this. That's or right. Even to say, oh, no, we're good. We're financially solid when you don't have to disclose your earnings.
Exactly. And then, on a weekly basis, after, a lot of these comments are made or these stories run, you get, big name signings, presumably at high dollars. And, it is worth wondering, is AEW making more than it's spending? Is it sustainable? Should, Tony's billionaire dad decide son, we're selling the business. I mean, what would happen to something like an AEW? So, what we have to do is sort of take those hints. And while we don't know their expenses, we do know a little bit about revenue, because it was public knowledge for AEW, for example, that when they renewed their initial deal that they had with Warner Brothers, they did so at a higher rate. So they're getting $175 million over 4 years, which breaks down to be around $44 million on an annual basis in what they're getting from TV fees. That's good money if you can get it.
If you can get it, So that's not nowhere near the size of Tony's checks that he sends me, but it's still good money.
I would take it for this show. If someone were offering me $44 million a year for two bros,
Yeah, I'd go ahead and give up the show for that.
I'd probably give it up. We'd have it 22 mil a piece. I know 44 million sounds like a lot of money. It is, but when you think about WWE's TV deals, what we know about them, knowing that they're 400 million, or I mean, it's
right.
So obviously, we're talking scale here, and that WWE has a larger, TV empire. But if you're making 44 million and you're spending 45 million, you're still in the red, right? So that's where it's a little harder to figure out on the expense side. Doug, I don't know, did you see anything about the interview that Forbes recently did, the profile on Tony Khan? Because that's where a lot of financial information, these nice little nuggets was dropped that we had not really heard before.
Nice little nuggets were dropped, and the good folks over at WrestleNomics were good enough to
break it down.
Sift through all that and break it down for a party Thor like me, so who maybe doesn't quite get it for the first time, so we need to say it for everybody in the room again. But yeah, I mean, the money is there. I thought it was interesting. The only thing they really talk about is, as far as expenses, is like it's about $500,000. Yeah, here it is, $500,000 to do Dynamite before paying talent.
Yeah.
So
exactly. So do the math on that for 52 weeks a year.
Yeah.
And now I guess that would probably, I don't know if that would include when they were, Rampage calls, because occasionally Rampage is taped with Dynamite. Right. Occasionally it's not. Video game development, David, you're calling out something that's really important here, because Tony Khan mentions in this Forbes interview that the wrestling part of the business, which is very important to think about, is he expects to be profitable this year. Mm-hmm. So he is breaking it out into segments the way that WWE has different segmented business line items, except all he talked about was the wrestling part. The video game part is interesting because, the thing we know about expenses related to it is they dropped 8-figure investment into video game development. Obviously 8 figures, a whole lot of money, and that is a good chunk of $44 million. if you're getting 6 figures, but you're investing 8 figures. So
yeah, in that same interview, I guess Tony Khan talks about putting a lot of money into Epic Games early on, and so I'm not sure where they're investing their money with their game developers, but I'm assuming that since the Khans have money in Epic already, that they're looking to Epic to build up their games. I'm not sure about that. I didn't come across anything. I don't know if you did.
So this is where you really have to pick up on hints.
Right.
If you're saying, when you're asked about profitability and you say the wrestling part of the business is expected to be profitable this year, I read between those lines to mean that overall we're not profitable yet.
Yeah.
The wrestling side is profitable if you look at the expenses versus what it costs to do the show, the $500,000, the production, the talent. So that must be in the black. But if you look at everything related to AEW, that's not just Dynamite and Rampage related, they obviously are not there yet, because I mean, that math right there of an 8-figure investment into wrestling video games, and what you're making from your TV deals, they're not making that up in ticket sales. So so for right now, they probably are operating on the good graces of billionaires who believe, and probably rightfully so, because of how well WWE has done in the gaming space. They could very easily make that money not just back, but tenfold if they do launch a successful video game franchise.
And it seems like Tony Khan is the guy that keeps kind of dragging his father, and I guess more importantly his father's money, into more, I don't want to say progressive, but I think more modern investments, because he got his dad to invest in his wrestling dream. And beyond that, it seems like, reading this Forbes interview, if you read between the lines, they go back to talking about the gaming section of AEW and how he got his dad reluctantly to invest, money, and his entire family to invest money in Epic Games early on too. So it seems like Tony Khan is the guy who seizes on these, bleeding edge things and kind of tries to jump on them and says, this will make money eventually. I mean,
he may be the voice of youth in that family too. Whether it's wrestling or video games, that's probably not something that the senior Mr. Khan was probably paying a whole lot of attention to either way. So he wouldn't see the possible profitability in such a thing. But Tony obviously is a fan. But when you hear that they're investing 8 figures in video games, again, is that 10 million or is that 99 million?
Right.
A large span there. On the low side, you're looking at that and thinking, well, we got all these rights that we're getting 42 million from just the wrestling side of things from our TV rights. But who knows? I did come across a video that I had watched last week of sort of, I guess, maybe outtakes of this Forbes interview, because this wasn't the Forbes story, but it was a profile that they had put up on their YouTube channel where he mentioned, Tony mentioned that he put some of his money into the organizations to keep things afloat during the pandemic, that they really were counting on those ticket sales.
Sure.
And when the tickets were gone, it required to keep everyone whole because they didn't let people go the way the WWE did. But I thought that was interesting too, because I'm reading between those lines as it must be pretty close to break even as it is, because it's not like AEW is out there like WWE is running 4 or 5 shows a week. I mean, they don't really do traditional house shows. It's very rare. Everything they're doing is that pay-per-view and those broadcasted events. So if that amount of tickets sold is what was making them profitable, that can't be a huge margin.
And do you think that's a smarter format? Because I mean that is like the wrestling format that has been for years for AEW and back in the day WCW. You run your house shows, then you do your TV. House shows, TV through, and then hit your big pay-per-view every month and move on. Where AEW is doing like quarterly, these quarterly pay-per-views. Their house shows are not. Their house shows, you're getting Dark probably before Dynamite. Then you're getting Dynamite. Most nights you're getting Rampage after that, and then you pack it all up, move on to the next town for the next week. Unless you have some big event like in Chicago, where they're like, hey, we're in Chicago all week and run things. I mean, maybe that's something where Tony Khan's like trying to forge a future of wrestling and see how things can be done differently and a little bit more profitable.
Well, other wrestling companies have done similar experiments through the years, and obviously WWE is in a financial position to do a little more. But like an Impact Wrestling, they've, as most wrestling companies through history have done, you get a bunch of folks in a room and you take like 4 or 5 shows back to back. So right. Save on all these production costs and things. And that's one way that some of these other companies stay profitable. Who knows, as AEW continues to grow, maybe they can grow into a touring company that financially it makes sense for them to work multiple dates that aren't on air, because the more dates these wrestlers work, the more money that they tend to make. A lot of these deals are, per appearance kind of deals. And so there's more of a chance to make money as a touring company if they go that route. But obviously AEW debuts right before a pandemic. So I think right now they're probably in a good position to not have had that income as something that they rely on. WWE's touring business has, in some ways, struggled, pre-pandemic and only picked up afterwards because there was such pent-up demand for live wrestling.
I think it also speaks to AEW's ability to survive, that they just so happen to have an outdoor arena or an outdoor stadium at their disposal. I mean, I'm sure on the books that the rent was paid for through AEW, but it's very handy to have your dad's outdoor arena in your backyard next to the big stadium.
Which brings up to Dave's recent point here is that Dad doesn't get tired of bleeding cash, because the reason we're having this conversation about it is that we don't know how much AEW is actually making, or if it's making anything at all. Right now, it seems as if I guess bottom lining it, Doug, I don't know what you got from the research you did, but from everything I can see, it would seem as if you just broke out the wrestling segment alone, it's probably slightly above break even. But at this point is still so early in a business venture that I think that the idea is one day we're going to make money with this. But right now, I imagine it is probably bleeding cash, as David says.
I imagine so too. I mean, because it's risky. I mean, everything's risky. I mean, especially in 2021, everything is risky. Rolling the dice, starting a wrestling company, and then looking for it to be profitable, or any company really at this point, and looking for it to be profitable. You're probably looking at 3 to 5 years before you're actually going to turn a profit. So if we're like 2-3 years into AEW at this point, and the wrestling side's allegedly going to turn a profit this year, that's great. Yeah. But I think it'll. I mean, they're up against the juggernaut that is WWE, which was built by Vince McMahon's dad, and Vince bought that from him, and then took it in a completely different direction and basically dismantled the territories. So I guess we have one millionaire, 2 billionaire, and then a billionaire family now, just kind of forging. It's just a new. The more I think about this, it's just more of a new Vince McMahon, really, because as I'm talking it out here, Vince took his own ideas and just dismantled the territories. Tony Khan is doing a bit more of the modern day Vince McMahon, really.
And who knows, maybe one day we will be talking about AEW in the way we talk about WWE and Vince McMahon, in that we're talking about their latest, balance sheet and what the latest investment report is. There's a big difference. I know that we're all quick to want to compare them to each other because, they are seen as competition. They are the biggest number 2 that WWE has had. But it's not like they're anywhere near as mature an organization. So I guess that's one thing to, AEW is a business startup. WWE is a mature business that is well diversified into all these different segments. So from that end of things, even though it sounds like it right now may be putting the company way in the red, Tony Khan attempting to diversify into things like video games and other revenue streams, because WWE, when they break down things by their movie division, by the network, by ticket sales for house shows and things that AEW simply doesn't have because they've not been around long enough to have it. But it does make sense for the new Vince McMahon, as you would rightly put it, to be looking at some of these things with a future mind of one day this is where the smart money is. And I don't think that that the senior Mr. Khan would let Tony just play with that money haphazardly. I think he probably has a lot of faith in his son that that's going to be a return on his investment.
Yeah, and there's that cool, like, hey, my dad is cool because he said this, which was, I'm going to leave you and you and your sister a lot of money when I die. So I'd rather spend some of that now and see you enjoy it. So okay, Colin, it's cool. Hey, buddy, come here.
Yeah,
where are you going?
That's a good point there. That it's really the difference in talking, big band, small band, indie flick, Hollywood tentpole. It's easier to be the cool, hip, new thing. It's harder to be the established. It's hard to look cool when you're when you're considered the man. When you're the you're the system, you're what everyone else rallies against. Like, if WWE is one thing, then if we're going to compete in that space, we have to be the alternative. And AEW has been the perfect alternative to WWE programming. It can't be expected to be the money-making juggernaut. I don't think that's even the intention, but I do think that they are wanting to be their own type of success. And then when I say that, it might be, as you were noting earlier, Doug, it may not be touring. They probably are looking at a lot of what WWE does and goes, the margin isn't there for us to even want to go that direction. But they do know that those rights fees for television and those video game franchising fees are potentially huge difference makers in the long-term viability of an AEW business model beyond just the world of wrestling. Because as we've known by being fans for so long, I don't care if you're if you're WWE, or in the case of WCW, if you're run by a billionaire, that's going to ebb and flow. So you better have something else to rely on and to prop you up when business isn't good, because at some point business won't be good for AEW, just like sometimes it's down for WWE or the whole industry.
So do you, Vince McMahon Sr. to Vince McMahon, wrestling in the family, eventually Triple H, Stephanie will be running WCW. That was Ted Turner. Is Ted Turner actually a wrestling fan, or was that another property for Ted Turner to scoop up and try and turn into a profit? Because I'm wondering if AEW
Ted was actually a big wrestling fan.
Okay, because
back in the day when it was just him, and it was more of a family then, like the way the company. I mean, WTBS was his station, and he owned the Atlanta Braves. He put the Braves on WTBS. He put wrestling on 605 on Saturday nights, and he credits those two things as being what made the juggernaut of the Turner cable empire. They were just WTBS. They were a local station, and it turned into the first super station, as they used to be known, because of wrestling and baseball. And because of those two things, he remained loyal to those two and right till the end, when a larger conglomerate comes and snaps them up. And guess what? Those guys aren't sentimental about Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes at 605 on Saturday night. And they're like, what's this crap doing on our TV? It's not all that profitable for, it's harder to get advertisers for that than it is reruns of, Seinfeld and Friends and what have you.
Yeah, and you don't want Domino's to be sponsoring your show if you're going to have pizza cutters as weapons.
So it is kind of cool that TBS and TNT are back in the wrestling business. And then, that's one more comparison you can make, since we're making the comparisons of the billionaire over on WTBS back in the day, but now TBS and TNT, to have them return to the Turner networks there's a little bit of serendipity to that. But I think that if we're to bottom line this, I think that while all we have to go on is Tony's word and hints, it does sound like they are watching. He's not just dumping money in the way that the Turner organization was dumping money in and just giving Eric Bischoff a blank check. I would think that they're more closely watching their P's and Q's, because for all the comparisons we're making, and there are a lot, one big thing to note different is that they have the ability to look at what went wrong in WCW and avoid those same pitfalls so that it doesn't happen to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, man, yeah, I think there's a blueprint of what to do and what not to do. I said very early on to you, it's like AEW reminds me of WCW when it was really good. And
it's too easy to focus on the end of WCW because it was so awful and it was so protracted a period of time where they just continued to get worse and worse that it was a joke, that it's almost easy to forget that they took on WWE. They weren't the number 2 that AEW is now. They were the number 1. They actually beat Vince at his own game for almost 2 straight years. And all we think of it now is, wow, how much money they wasted and how awful the product was at the end. So it's not all dollars and cents. Creatively speaking, AEW has definitely kept a more consistent level of creative success. And so let's just hope that they are smarter with their money, learn from the mistakes, that these investments in video games and things pay off so that we have more wrestling to talk about.
Because I love talking about wrestling.
Otherwise, why would you be here?
Right.
That's our main event topic.
Wow.
For this week. So Doug, you ready to move to Big Finish?
Let's move to Big Finish. I just have a few things to talk about here. I'll let you talk about Crown Jewel. I've not watched it. I have no desire to watch it. I've watched the others, and I'm done with Crown Jewel. However, I hear this was probably the best Crown Jewel, which that bar was set really, really low.
It wasn't objectively speaking, there's just no comparison between this one and the others. So that's kind of where I wanted to jump off for the Big Finish, is that by any objective measure, regardless of what you think about should it be happening, it happened. So it's happened. It's how they've dealt with it in the past that's made it not only a show that's controversial because of where it takes place and the money arrangement. We could do a whole show on that, and maybe we should sometime, looking into the financials of that and whether or not morally it's the right thing. But if you put all that aside and just look creatively, the reason that Crown Jewel hasn't been very successful in the past is that it's been treated like a glorified house show. It's been an added on event. They've always had their normal pay-per-view that month, and then it's some odd event in the middle of the week somewhere where nothing of note ever happened, really, outside of just a very few minor things, no real great matches or anything. This time, as we noted last week, it really seemed like they were putting a lot more thought into the event, a lot more promotion into it, and they had no other pay-per-view in October. It was the pay-per-view, and they stacked it with matches that were worthy of like a WrestleMania. I mean, we're talking, Lesnar Reigns kind of level of matches. And yeah, for the most part, just creatively, it delivered. The audience was hot for it. I don't know if it's because this is the third one and maybe they're getting some more WWE TV, so they know a little bit more about what's going on. They're more invested than they were. But that's one of the things, Doug, that really stood out to me is that not only were the matches a whole lot better than they've ever been before, but the crowd was really into, really into almost everything that was going on.
And a hot crowd will make the difference between a mediocre show and make a mediocre match seem like a great match too. So
objectively speaking, I mean, the two world title matches were great. The women's match was great. The opening contest was great. You crowned your new king of the ring, your new queen of the ring. So, I mean, there was a lot to talk about with this show. As far as just the creative side of it, meant a whole lot more. As David points out, Mansoor wins again. He is not going to lose in Saudi Arabia.
This is cool. We pump this up. Yes,
he's got a streak. He's got a streak. But I have to say that again, the moral side of things taken aside, it was a successful event by any measure, the best of these events that they've ever had. So with that, Doug, let's go to the three parts of our big finish because mine are kind of related to Crown Jewel.
Okay, cool. So you want to go? What do we got?
I'll go botch first just because I've spent all this time telling you how great Crown Jewel was because it was. But seeing the women wrestlers come out, for all that we can say about the advancements of them even being allowed to wrestle, just seeing them in long pants and long sleeves just demonstrates and reminds us, it should remind us of the oppression that women are still facing in that country. And for me, it just sort of highlights that WWE is willing to work with that oppressive regime and look the other way because of being worth millions of dollars to them. I mean, we had a female referee for the first time, which again is advancement. It's got to be 100 degrees. It's in the desert, and she's out there in long sleeves. That should be a reminder of that what it is that they're doing business with a regime that treats women the way they do. So, yeah, that's my botch of the week.
I would say Crown Jewel is a botch of the week, for me, just because of everything you mentioned and everything that regime is. And I've said it, the other two times that, it seems like fan fiction for the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia anytime WWE comes to town. But I can't say anything about this particular version of Crown Jewel because I haven't watched it, none of the matches or anything. But yeah, WWE could do better. But there's that money. So
money, and it's what 5. I actually don't think it was for a number of years. I think it was for a certain number of events because this is the first one that's happened since pre-pandemic. So I think that whatever their contract was they signed with the royal family, it was for a certain number of events over years, but it was in the hundreds of millions of dollars to the company. That's why WWE pushes these things so hard.
Yeah.
Performer of the week, Doug.
Bryan Danielson, man. The American Dragon, I've said this before too, could make me look great in a ring. And watching Dynamite, man, you forget how good Dustin is, but Bryan just turns it up a notch and is like, hey, here's this 30-year veteran. Look what this guy goes. Look what he can do. but I know it takes two to tango, so to speak. But I'm giving this one to Brian just because of how great he made Dustin Rhodes look.
Well, you could go back the week before when he did something similar with someone even older than Dustin. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's obvious that Danielson is inspired again.
Yeah.
And allowed to do a whole lot that he wasn't allowed to do in WWE, having these long form matches that are more technical and mat based than what WWE typically presents.
Yeah. Yeah, I do just want to give a shout out to Lance Archer for that nasty bump he took in that match with Eddie Kingston. Thankfully it looks like he's okay, but I've never seen anybody actually land on their head when they do a moonsault. That.
It actually reminded me of the famous WrestleMania attempt by Brock Lesnar to hit Kurt Angle, and he came down on a really big, thick neck like he has, and it looked, that was what it instantly put me in the mind of, is that there are two men who are, by the grace of God, not paraplegic at this point. I mean, it's
absolutely
scary
that
to
was
see.
Nasty.
My performance of the week, despite all I said about the fact that they had to wrestle basically covered head to toe, I'm giving it to Zelina Vega. It wasn't for the match. It was for what the match represented. And that was here's someone who earlier this year got let go by WWE. And then when she was brought back, was done so under, I guess, the pretense she thought she was maybe going to get a little more out of re-signing than what she got initially,
and get to work with her husband again, who was still employed with WWE at the time.
Exactly, who now has gone on to be a big star in AEW while she was sitting around doing either nothing or jobs or not. She's the competitor standing in the ring when you get back from the commercial, doesn't even get an entrance or something, and she's way too talented for that. Hopefully this is not just a reward for the time being, but a character development thing that she will take and run with, because we know she will. But your new and your first ever female, the queen of the ring, I guess you would say, is Zelina Vega. And for as talented as she is, if they really go and get behind this, it couldn't happen to a more deserving athlete. And hopefully it's the start of something a little more for her. We'd all like to see that.
I agree with it. I was just reading Dave's comment. Let me pop this up here.
Doug, well, Mr. AEW, what do you think about that?
So I will agree. I mean, I don't like, but it's Cody. He's going to come back. We got Arn, doing the bang bang and all this. So it leads to Cody coming back and the heel getting his comeuppance as it is, and it's almost a rite of passage for, it seems like, the WWE guys when they come to AEW to feud with Cody, then get taken out by Cody at the end of it. I mean,
I almost I saw it as almost being intentional. It's like, okay, at first he's probably being surprised that he legitimately was surprised. If you're watching Roads to the Top, it's like, wait a minute, they're booing me. Obviously he is sort of what Triple H was to NXT. I mean, people for a while was giving Cody those kind of pops of like, thank you, Cody, for giving us all of this. But the crowd starts to turn. And so I'm thinking Cody's actually just leaning right into that. And I think that the idea of like, okay, the creative guy is booking himself to be on top was intentionally done just to make them hate him more, to get that reaction that Dave was just saying. I really think that at this point, it's like, all right, we're going to give him his first loss, and we're going to have the creative, the guy behind the scenes book himself to win over Malachi, and it's just going to make us more money because they're going to just hate me that much worse now.
It's all the work, isn't it?
It's all work.
It's all work.
Doug, let's get into our match of the week, because I think I know what you're going to say. I want you to go first.
Okay, so I am actually going to go with a Rampage match with Andrade and Pac, because I loved that match.
I knew you were.
Loved it.
Let's not love. I mean, it was fantastic. Yeah, fantastic by any measure. because I knew you were going with that, I went with the other match of the week because I knew you probably wouldn't have seen it yet, because it was from Crown Jewel. It not only stole the show, it was neck and neck with the match you mentioned. I thought Doug's going to go with that Rampage match, so I'm going to highlight this one: Edge versus Rollins, Hell in a Cell. Crown Jewel got Hell in a Cell, and it was worthy of that title, and it set the tone for this not being your normal Crown Jewel glorified house show. It started off the broadcast 40 minutes. It was a 40-minute long epic match. It was brutal. It was chains and chairs and memorable spots and a crowd that was extremely invested in everything that was happening on screen. I'm not sure the correct person won in the end. I'm not sure the booking, much like a Cody going over a younger talent like Malachi, who maybe needed it more. I'm not sure that Seth shouldn't have won this rubber match because this was the third and presumably end of their series of matches. But top to bottom, it was a fantastic contest. My match of the week.
So really what I'm hearing here is I should actually give this Crown Jewel a chance, because
at least watch that first hour, because that first match is worth watching.
Because with the bar being set so low, everything I've still heard about it, I'm like, okay, yeah, I've seen Crown Jewel before. I don't really care, but maybe I should turn an eye back to it. I still call it my botch of the week, though, because
no doubt about it that the moral implications of what they're doing is something completely different. But creatively speaking, they appeared to put more time into this one, and the talent seemed to be more invested. It seems like, I don't know if it's jet lag in the past or, a brutal regime that maybe has them a little frightened or what. They've just seemed way tentative in the past. Yeah, I did think too, David, that because they were investing so much in this as their pay-per-view for this month, that there would maybe be a title change, and there wasn't, which actually surprised me. Yeah,
but I do think from everything I've heard that the right people were winning, as far as like the king and queen of the ring. Because I agree, Zelina Vega needs her. It's her time, and it's also King Xavier's time.
You talk about the one member of the New Day that's never got that push as a singles competitor, and there's no doubt about it that the man has the charisma and the ring skills to do something with this gimmick. So I'm with you. I think that the right guys won, and gals. So with that, Doug, next week, you know what next week is, right? Next Sunday.
Is it Halloween? Can I wear a lucha mask next week? Can I do it all in like a lucha?
It is our special Halloween show. We are doing a Halloween themed show because next week's topic, folks, 8:00 Eastern on Sunday night, Halloween night. Next week, we're talking blood, gore, mostly blood. To bleed or not to bleed. We got two different philosophies. The major companies now. Blading has been a long-standing practice in the world of wrestling, but over the last few years, it's become banned in WWE, whereas you got a new promotion that's coming up that is competing with them that gives some color, some blood. So we're going to debate and talk about the history of blading, the history of blood and the role it's played in professional wrestling, and whether or not it's a good thing that, grown men and women get in there and like let their blood mix around and, disease and all that kind of stuff.
Disease and blood and guts. Oh my.
Ooh, spooky.
All right. This has been an awesome show. I've had a few distractions going on tonight.
Way to keep kicking out though, Doug. Kudos to you. You didn't just take the pin.
Hey, sometimes I will kick out in 3 1/4, but I'm still kicking out, man.
It's all right. It's all right. We always will take an extra bro when we can get them.
All righty. Thanks everybody for watching. Come back, see us next week. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and sub over there. Comment, do all that cool, fun stuff that lets all the algorithms know that you all like us. And until next week, be safe, everybody.